Welcome to Grant's Rock Warehouse, and I want to welcome Steve Schnee and BM Bolt to the channel. Tonight we are going to rank the albums of 80s band The Call. Great catalog, a lot of great songs. Let's do it. Let's
Talking
go.
bands no one talks about. Grant's Rock Warehouse.
Welcome to Grant's Rock Warehouse, and tonight is going to be quite a show because the discussion prior to the show was electrifying. Tonight we are going to talk about, how would I put these guys? These guys spanned almost a 20-year period of releases. We're talking about The Call. The first album came out in 1982 and the last album came out in 1987. They recently just brought out an album of releases of unreleased. Go ahead, Steve, bring that up.
Yes.
Unreleased material. Are there B-sides on there?
No, it's unreleased material going back to pre-call days up to, I believe, a couple of the tracks were left over from like the Red Moon sessions.
So there you go. So
Yeah.
This is current stuff. Byron came up with this topic, and you know how we work this in the warehouse is usually we have someone bring up a topic. Hey, Grant, The Call. Who was talking The Call? Well, no one. But we like to talk about these bands no one talks about. The thing about The Call, though, is that they weren't really successful.
They were.
Not in a sense like you.
I mean, they weren't Thompson twins successful, but they were more successful than
They did well.
Paul Cullen's Beat or 2020.
Okay. But anyway, so who was talking The Call? And I said,
I am.
Let's talk The Call. You going to bring up Schnee TV? Why?
No, I'm not going to bring up Schnee TV, but thank you for bringing it up. Schnee TV, indie music videos.
Where's your cup?
It's in the other room.
Okay. There, ladies and gentlemen.
No, I was not.
So I've come into The Call. I just want to say that Mr. Schnee is a seasoned veteran of The Call. I'm going to turn it over to him to talk about it. Byron has heard some of the records, and he likes what he's heard.
I've heard all of them now.
He's heard of them now because we all had an assignment, so to speak.
Not me.
I want to just mention is that I know the hits that were played on alternative radio back in the day. That's what I know. So I'm coming in pretty green, but like I've said on this show, I like to come in that way because I don't have any preconceived notions of anything, and I can come in clean and give my honest opinion. So that being said, I'm going to turn it over to Stephen Schnee and give us a little bit more background on The Call.
Well, the interesting thing about The Call, first off, they were formed in Santa Cruz in 1980. So every time I go to Santa Cruz, which is infrequently, but I do go there, it's like, that's sacred ground for me because I love this band so much. But the band, when they formed, was Michael Bean. At that point, he was guitar and vocals. There was Tom Ferrier on guitar, and I believe backing vocals. Scott Music on drums. They also had Greg Freeman on bass, and they had a keyboard player, I think starting like 1981, Steve Huddleston, and took a while, but in 1982 they put out their debut album, which was self-titled. The thing about this album, it was one of the many great albums produced by Hugh Padgham in 1982. He was on a roll. I mean, I don't think he ever left the studio. He did Split Ends, Time and Tide. He did English Settlement by XTC, and he did the first album by The Call. Great thing about that album is, I was up in LA, back in those days, I'd get my paycheck from Jack in a Box. I was 16, 17 years old, and I'd just go spend it up at Aaron's and Renee's Records, which were stores on Melrose Avenue in Hollywood. And I remember seeing the album by The Call. I picked it up, looked at it. I bought, as I've said many times before, if the band's name had "the" in front of it, I bought it. But I didn't know what to expect. And around this time, of course, this is the 80s, is 1982. 9 times out of 10, you're going to hear something that's really hopping, bopping, kind of happy, new wavy, either power pop, or maybe it's going to be angry punk. But I didn't know what to expect with The Call. I put the needle down. It was nothing what I expected. I was thinking it might have been new wavy, but it wasn't. But it wasn't quite post-punk either. It wasn't punk rock. It was something very, very passionate, very serious, where, sometimes, some bands are going to have, tra-la-las and stuff. They weren't that type of band. And their lyrics were, I guess you can say some of it was spiritual, some of it was, you know, Michael Bean, who was the main songwriter singer, he was a very intelligent writer, and dealing with social issues and just a very, very interesting band. And in those days, I thought maybe that might have been it, that we would never hear from that band again. But I absolutely loved that album. Interesting thing though about The Call is, first off, they came out of the gate fully formed. They weren't a band that needed to take 2, 3, 4 albums to develop a sound. They were fully friggin' formed. Garth Hudson from the band played on a lot of their albums. He was not an official member, but he did play on a lot of the albums. And just an incredible, unique band that stood out because of the fact that they weren't happy tra-la-la and they weren't new wavy. They had a mission.
Like tra-la-la, like the Banana Splits?
No, like ba 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 da ba ba, I don't remember.
Not tra-la-la, not that.
No, but close. A lot of new wave had that, and everyone knows I love that stuff. But this is unique. It was very, very interesting and powerful. That's the thing about The Call. They were a very powerful, passionate, emotional band.
I'm going to jump in here. I got some notes I wanted to, before we actually rank them too. Because you're saying a lot of things that I was thinking. It's like the emotion in the vocals is the one thing I always seem to come back to with these guys. They weren't the kind of band that I normally got into, especially back in the 80s. I was more of a metal, classic rock, prog guy. I wasn't really, but what's weird is, so you were saying that, and I also wrote down, well, they kind of remind me a little bit of new wave, post-punk.
There is that,
not
yes.
really, but you could hear that in there. And what I kind of hear is they almost seem British to me, except for the vocals are not British at all, but they remind me a little bit of like some early U2 at times, maybe a little of the Police, the Pretenders. I hear a little bit of that in there, but they weren't a British band, they were an American band. And there was a lot of synths in there, so they were almost kind of new wave at times, but they just kind of a little bit of all that, in my opinion.
And Michael Bean, he could sing, but he also had this wonderful bellow. He just had, he could be, singing soft and reserved, but then he had this voice that came from deep within. Now, I believe that Grant has referred to that as shouting, but it's not. It's more of a bellow. And
well, I have to explain myself since you're throwing me under the bus.
Okay, I'm throwing you under the bus.
But I think a lot of more of that early stuff, I felt that. On the later stuff, I felt he sang more instead of quote unquote yelling.
By the way, Byron told me to throw you under the bus right before we started recording.
What I'm saying is that middle period, I think, is much stronger because I think he's using his vocals to his advantage more and actually using his vocals and singing. A lot of that earlier stuff, I kind of felt like it was more talking or yelling than actual singing. That's what I was trying to say.
Yeah, I don't hear the talking thing, but
I do.
The bellow, Oh, well, now when you think about like War Weary World and a few songs like that, okay, I can see that, and Modern Romans, False Gods, stuff like that. It does sound kind of talky.
Okay.
So
that's what I mean.
read where he said that on the first album that he thought it might have came across a little angry at times.
Yes, I feel
maybe that's what it is.
Or I'm being yelled at, or I feel anger. And it's really not the kind of thing I'm into so much. But we kind of got out of that as we progressed through the catalog. That's what I'm trying to
Mhm.
say.
Mm-hmm.
So
I
we'll
actually
see
think
my
that their
ranking.
sound changed. I don't know if you feel that way.
I think
You had said, Steve had said how they came fully developed right out of the gate, but that may
I
be, but I feel like they changed.
Oh yeah, no. What I mean by being fully developed is they had a sound. So from the beginning to the end, they sounded like nobody else but the Call. But every band, every good band matures and they add more musical elements. So when you get to like the MCA stuff, like the Red Moon album stuff, you're adding more of a gospel feel to things, but you're still sounding very much like the Call.
right.
Yeah, because
And the
I
thing that
thought
kills me,
they were more rootsy and bluesy and gospely
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
as they got into their career as well. Go
Yeah.
ahead, Brad.
but that middle period's like a double-edged sword to some degree because it gets more 80s sounding and more commercial to some degree, but then the
Mm-hmm.
vocals are better. So
Mm-hmm.
like I look at the catalog and I don't really have anything in the catalog that for me speaks to me 100%.
Mm-hmm.
And that just must be my musical preferences. It has nothing to do with the band. We all hear things differently. You
Mm-hmm.
can hear one thing and I hear something else. I'm going, well, I wish this had a little bit more of this, or that's
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. Right. I love, I'm usually a guy that listens to things that are a little happier, a little bit more upbeat. My friend Rob stated once, and it's stuck with me. He goes, oh yeah, Schnee, he prefers to walk on the sunny side of the street in terms of the music he listens to. So I'm not going to listen to Bauhaus or any of the goth bands. I'm going to focus on maybe the happier things, sort of,
what I do.
yeah, things that sort of take you out of reality and gives you a little solace, a little break from the stuff that swirls around you on a daily basis. The Call actually bring it straight to you, but they do it in a way that I find comforting and just I mean, Michael Bean, incredible, and it's crazy that he started out as a guitar player in the band, but by the third album he was the bass player because the bass player had left, and then they brought in Jim Goodwin from Sparks, who had been Sparks and Gleaming Spires. They brought him into the band, and he played keyboards, and so that added a different layer to it, alongside Garth Hudson playing the occasional keyboard as well. But let's start ranking them.
Yes, who's
Sure.
going first?
You two
You guys
go.
start.
Yes.
Go ahead, Steve, and I'll go
Okay.
next, and then Grant will.
There's only okay. It's very hard to rank this band because I love this band so much. The last time I did this, we've ranked the Knack and Bay City Rollers and things like this, right? It's always difficult. The Call is a different beast because they're not playing that happy-go-lucky sound. They're playing something a little different. Now, the only reason why the Lost Tapes is the bottom of my list is because all the other albums I've had several decades to live with. This one I've only had for a couple months, but it's got great songs on it. It's got the energy of the early stuff because there's some stuff here from the post or the pre-debut album, and then there's some later stuff, and it's a good mix of the melodic and also the bluesy rocky type stuff. So this is going to be what is it, number 8 or 9? How many?
Yeah, this will be your 9 then.
Okay, yeah,
It'd be
7 and 8.
9.
yeah. So this is my number 9, and that's only, like I said, I've had it for a few months. Everything else I've had for decades.
Okay. Cool. Excellent. All right. Byron, go ahead. Number 9.
I don't have 9. I don't have.
Oh,
I've never
that's
heard that
right,
album.
because we didn't do that one.
We didn't do that one. That was.
So that's 9. So number 8.
So Steve, do your 7 and 8, and then we'll. 7.
Well, how come we're not counting this? I'm counting this as an album.
I've never heard it. I didn't really even know about it till recently. So
Oh,
As you
okay.
can tell, that we're awfully loose on this channel, ladies.
we're
and
pretty
gentlemen.
loose.
Yeah.
We'll do 8 or 9 albums.
Okay,
Just
it'll be
am
my
I-
9 because I've never heard it.
Am I being paid full wages for the show?
Yes.
No.
Okay.
So I appreciate you bringing it, but we kind of talked about that before, that we don't
We
know
probably
that
didn't
one
tell
very well.
Steve. we're gonna do
Okay.
that.
So should I do number 8 now?
Do 8
Go
and
ahead.
7.
You're here. Do number 8.
Okay. Number 8 is going to be Into the Woods. And the only reason this is my number 8 is because it's a little darker. It's a little darker than the other albums. I think the 4 albums that came before it were more energetic. This one, I feel like they were in a darker place. It's not dark like goth. It's very much The Call. But it's always struck me as just darker. But what I do want to mention is the same time that this came out, and I'll only mention this once, but they released this, which is the 2 Elektra albums remastered. And so it has Into the Woods and it has Reconciled on it. So
And
I'll only mention this now.
What label is that, Steve?
It is their label. So so you can buy it from their Bandcamp or the-call-band.com. And the Reconciled, by the way, has Everywhere I Go extended version added to it. So.
Okay, cool. All right. Byron,
What's your number 8, Byron?
what's your number 8, Byron?
Oh, okay. Wow, man. This is going to be way different for us tonight, I think. So my number 8, actually, I'm going to go. Steve may kill me when I say this, but I'm going to go with their '84 album, "Seen Beyond Dreams."
What?
I thought, I felt like their first album was a little stronger than this one. And I did. The biggest problem I had with this album was some of the synthesizers I just thought were really bad at times, like on Heavy Hand and Promise and Threat. I just couldn't get into those synthesizers that they were using. I love the title track though. I thought it was good, and the keyboards actually I thought sounded pretty good on that too. I thought I liked the Burden delivered. I really kind of liked that, but I thought the chorus was kind of weak. But everything prior to the chorus I thought was great. So, but yeah, so I'm going to go with that. But those were some of the standouts.
So Seen Beyond Dreams is your number 8?
Is my number 8.
Yeah, because my headphone went out and I didn't hear a thing you said.
Oh,
okay, go ahead.
Or did it? No, it didn't. But anyway, yes, that's my number 8. So I think we're going to have a lot of variety tonight.
Yeah, exactly. Great.
We are,
What do you think?
because, well, my number 8. This is very difficult for me, because I look at this band much like the Sly and the Family Stone catalog. I look at this band as a bell curve. So we start out a little slower, we get better, we get better, we get better, and then we plateau, and then I think we kind of come down. Now that might be a contrarian view. That's how I see
Contrarian
it.
to me.
Well, I just have to get ready for you to give me shit. So here we
No,
go.
no, I won't give you shit on camera.
All right, ladies and gentlemen. So like I said before, I came to this band, I only heard the hits. So I'm coming in fresh. Now, if you know me, you know the kind of music I tend to like. And nothing against The Call. They're all very fine players. I think some of the songs are okay. I don't want to candy, but I also don't want to be negative. But I look at The Call as kind of like a bell curve. They start out slow, even though I like the early stuff. And I don't know why that's doing that. So we start out slow, we go up, and I think it comes back down. Some people may think that this record is a lot better than I'm going to make it. I'm not going to go into anything too deep, but my top 6 I can really go into. So for me, we're going to look at the last album from 1997. We're going to go to Heaven and Back. I think it's an okay record. I just don't. There are certain things about it that I don't find appealing about it. God, I don't even know how to describe it. This is tough because normally when I do these shows, I come out with something really great. I mean, this is a fine album. I don't think this is really up my alley as far as what I'm really into.
Is this the time that I interrupt you and then go on to my number 7?
If you want. I think it's an okay record, but I don't really find much here that I want
Not
to
your thing.
revisit. It's not my thing. But some of these other records, when I get up higher, I have a lot more to say about.
Yeah.
This really isn't kind of my thing. I mean, it's a more mature effort. It's okay, but I think they had their moment, and it's okay. Go ahead, Steve. You're up.
Yeah, I don't think that they ever lost. Like I said,
I know we all hear it
I-
differently.
yeah, oh, absolutely, absolutely. But my number 7 is going to be Red Moon. It's a
Mhm.
wonderful album. One of my favorite call album or songs is on this. A song called Family. Just oh my God, just it sounds like he's just his heart is breaking during that song. I think it's a more reserved album than I was hoping for, but ultimately though, it's still a fantastic album. It has a very gospel feel to it throughout most of it. I thought that the album would be more rocking because they just had, a big hit with the Let the Day Begin album. And so I expected more of that, but I love the fact that they just went against what was expected of them and they created an album that they wanted to make. And so again, putting these in a order is really tough, but Red Moon is going to be my number 7.
And I want to jump on that real quick because I can see what you're saying. Because and that kind of goes to that bell curve thing. It's a fine record. I don't have a problem with it. I'm not going to tell you, well, my damn pick's the same as that. That's my number. That's my number 7. It's a much more of a mature album. It's kind of organic sounding. Do you want to use the word Americana? Can we use that or no?
I think that that's probably closer. It's probably closer to an Americana album than it is to a post-punk or a new wave record.
I mean, there's more organ on this record.
More piano.
Piano,
more organ. Yep.
More synths because we do go to that one period where the synths are there's predominant synths on this stuff. This we kind of what?
Not on that album.
No, not on here.
Like you said, it's more organ.
Middle periods, what I'm talking about. This is just a little bit more earthy, more down to earth. It's not, you're right. It's not quite as energetic or gripping, I think, as the material that came before. But it's not, I don't think it's bad.
Right. See, here's the thing about Michael Biehn is he never, ever sang without conviction.
When he sang.
Okay, so Byron, what was your number 7?
I'm going to go with my number 7. Let's keep it moving here. Steve's going to
kill me. I told you it's going to be quite a show, ladies and gentlemen.
Steve's going to kill me again.
No, I'm not going to kill you. I'm not going to kill you.
I'm going to go.
He's turning all red.
Go with their debut as number 7.
No way. Really?
I read that Peter Gabriel really liked this album and wanted I don't know if he toured with them or he wanted to tour with them at that time, but to me, it's a very post-punk new wave-ish album, and that's just not my thing. I thought that There's a Heart Here was pretty good. It's a very energetic song. And Who's That Man was pretty good. It had kind of a real fast reggae feel to it, but then they kind of would break into, it almost sounded like a Derek and the Dominoes Little Wing, that intro that they have. Da, 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 da. They would break into that. But yeah, War Weary World was okay for an opener. But yeah, overall, it just, like Grant says, it wasn't my thing. So it's my number 7.
It's weird that I'm getting just emotionally beaten up here.
Because you let yourself be emotionally beaten up. It's all good. We're talking music. It's all good. Don't be beaten up.
All right, now we're on a groove. We're in a groove right now. So
who's
okay,
up?
the call.
Is it me?
Fantastic. No, it's me.
You're up. Okay. I'm writing down everybody's picks so I can keep track. Go ahead.
Okay. My number 6 is, oddly enough, it's probably their first or second most successful album. That's Let the Day Begin. Again, fantastic, fantastic album.
At 6?
At 6, because here's the thing about any type of band. We're talking the Stones, the Call, Flock of Seagulls, whatever. Or no, XTC is another prime example.
Okay.
Sometimes, like when I talk to an XTC fan, if the first album that they really got into was Skylarking, I don't talk to them, right? Because that's their gateway album, and they're going to blow all the other stuff off. Oh yeah, English Settlement, it's terrible, right? And it's like, no, it it I'm not really going to blow him off. I'm just not going to talk to him.
You know,
Well,
like the Johnny come latelys that get on the bandwagon.
Yeah, yeah,
you're
yeah.
talking like the Kiss fans that come in the 80s and then they look at the 70s period and go,
Yeah,
we've
but the
had
80s stuff
shows on
sucks.
that. Well, no, some people love that stuff. It all and Rush, same kind of thing. It
Yeah.
depends upon when you come into the band and what you like. I
Exactly.
like all that 70s stuff, and I look at the later 80s stuff and I'm going, but
Right.
I still like it, but it's not like that heyday. So
Yeah, I can't
get
believe that
what
there
you're
are people out there who would say "Lick It Up" is better than "Shout It Out Loud."
You mean Destroyer?
It's not a song.
No, the song. Lick
Oh,
It
the
Up.
song. I thought you were talking the
Yeah.
album.
Yeah, no. But no, I really dig this album a lot. Again, none of these are bad to me. But this is just them, I guess, going into that more earthy direction, moving away from the 80s, entering into the 90s, which obviously, since this album came out in 1989, totally made sense. But still, Michael Biehn, Tom Ferrier, Scott Music, Jim Goodwin creating wonderful music on Let the Day Begin.
All right, cool. Am I up?
No, I am.
God darn it.
That's all right.
I can't keep track. All right, Byron, I'm ready. I'm writing down your pick. Go ahead.
My number 6. I'm going to go with their 1997 album, the last one they released before
Heaven and Back.
Heaven and Back. Yeah. Yeah, you guys have kind of talked about it, but it's a more relaxed, subdued album. I think he's holding back a little bit on his vocals at times. There's not the power behind it, and at times it's a little more subdued. The synths are gone for the most part at this point. You get a little more organ. It's more roots rock. At this point, you don't really hear much of that British sound of theirs anymore, except I do get a little bit of a 90s U2 feel on a couple tracks.
Yeah.
But if I had more time with this album, it might have rated a little higher because I actually thought it was pretty good. Every time I listened to it, it got a little bit better. The opener, Soaring Bird, was pretty good. It's a very upbeat track, but it's I shouldn't have. It's kind of upbeat, but it's still kind of a slower track, and it's very restrained. Love Is Everywhere. I thought that was kind of a real mellow, nice track, and that one gave me a U2 feel at times.
Mm-hmm.
My favorite song on here was Compromise. I really like that song a lot. So, that's all I'll discuss on it. I don't want to talk about every song. But yeah, I thought it was a pretty good album. So, my 6.
All right, cool. My number 6. All right, I'm going to go with the debut album, The Call, 1982. You got a very early 80s sound on here. When I listen to this, I hear several things. And I always like to throw out some bands that maybe other people can relate to. And I'm not saying that this band was influenced by these bands. A lot of these bands are contemporaries. I'm going to go with, to me, this band sounds like a mix of the Cars. Maybe a hint of Wall of Voodoo just sprinkled in a little bit, maybe. The band Translator, which I think are out of San Francisco. I hear a lot of Translator on here. Now, maybe it could be that whole era. I don't know. But I'm good with that. You get a lot of that tic-tac guitar sound, like that Fender Jazzmaster sound from Rick Ocasek on here. Literally, it sounds like a combo of Translator and the Cars. Michael Biehn, to me, on this record, shouts more than he sings. Now, I know everybody else on the panel they mistake that for feeling, but he's shouting at me to some degree.
I'm sorry, my headphone's not working. Hurry up, Grant. Get it over with.
I'm going to have to mute you. The playing on this record, I think's fine. The band's great. Guitars ring out. The drums sound great. Bass playing, that's one thing. The bass on these records are really great. No one talks about it. But there's no real hooks. There's no hooks for me. I'm not drawn into it, and Schnee's rolling his eyes, but I don't hear any hooks. I could listen to it over and over again, and I go, And you also have early gang vocals on here. If anybody knows what gang vocals are, you have some gang vocals on here. So look out, Bon Jovi. But the production's great. Like I said, I feel like I'm being yelled at, or maybe I should be at a UK soccer game listening to these guys. I'm not sure. But that's my number 6. Like I said, they get better. It's a bell curve for me. So that's my number 6.
To Have It Back is my number 5.
Oh.
I love this record. Showed them approaching music in a different, more raw sounding, more rough sounding. They weren't working with a major label, and they were recording these songs. Now, this is an album. By this time, the band was doing they put out like a really great pop song, and then right after that, kind of like a more of a blues-based rocker, then another pop, then another blues-based rocker. And that's kind of what this album's all about. But the thing that saves it is Michael Bean's bellow. And the playing. These guys are exceptional players.
Yes.
And the chemistry with these guys works really, really well. The song Soaring Bird is one of my favorite Call songs. Kind of if anyone's heard the Michael Bean solo album, he put out a solo album. Has anyone heard the song She off of that?
Is it the Monkees cover?
No, it is not. And is not the, was it
Kiss
Charles
cover?
Aznavour or Serge Gainsbourg or whatever? Not that it is one of the most amazing guitar pop songs ever written by anybody. Now, this album I was a little bit disappointed with because this is more like it's like blues rock heavy up front, but then it opens up and the song She is incredible. That's what the song Soaring Bird reminds me of. It reminds me of the song She, just this melody that just takes off, and it goes into places you don't expect it, and it's fantastic. So that is why To Have It Back is my number 5.
All right, cool, excellent. All right, Mr. Bolt.
I had that one as 6, so we were close on one, Steve.
Well,
right.
We're all over the place with this band, which is kind of funny.
I think we're kind of coming together here in this middle pick.
Maybe.
So yeah, my number 5 is actually, I'm going to go Red Moon, which I think was Steve's 6, maybe. But
that was my 7.
Oh, okay. Well, I felt like this album was a little more acoustic than the previous albums. I think that I had read where they complained that MCA didn't like the album and they didn't promote it. But MCA really doesn't promote anybody.
No, them being on MCA is like taking them to the graveyard. Get them ready to.
You're done.
Bury them.
Yeah, but I really like the first track on here, "What's Happened to You," and I swear to God, if I didn't know better, I thought it was Van Morrison. You ever feel that way?
Totally, absolutely.
Totally had that Van
Wow,
Morrison.
that's good. Yeah.
Yeah. You Were There, I really thought was pretty good. To me, that was a real bluesy tune. Got some sax playing in it. You Were There was another one that I thought had a little bit of. Wait, no, I just said You Were There. Next track I want to talk about, This Is Your Life. I thought that was a real good, fast rocking tune. Got some nice chorus and guitars. It's the heaviest thing on the album, from what I remember. And that Floating Back kind of reminded me a little bit of Iggy Pop, Lust for Life.
Yeah, nice little riff going through that one.
Yeah, so that's going to be my number 5, Red Moon.
Okay.
1990.
All right, good pick. Mr. Schnee, I do believe you brought up Into the Woods prior. Wasn't that your number 8?
That was my number 8, yes.
Okay, so I totally get what you're saying because my number 5 is Into the Woods. And I listened to this record. It's a little bit lackluster. We're now bell curve, and we're now going down. It sounds more of the same. I don't see really any growth in the band. I see that the band is kind of going backwards to me. I'm not crazy about the synthesizer sounds on this album, and I don't think the band is bringing anything new to the table. I mean, this was a contractual album, right? Correct? Am I right?
I don't think so.
What was the record? No, I thought this was. Anyway, I think this is only for the completist, and like I said, I don't know this catalog in and out, but I didn't really listen to Into the Woods, and there wasn't really anything there for me. I mean,
But
I
if there's nothing there for
fine.
you, wouldn't that have been your number 8?
Well, that's because number 8 didn't have anything for me at all, but I like this better than number 8.
I think he likes the mid-80s. I think he likes that 80s period a little bit better than the
Yes.
90s.
Yes.
Yep.
I don't know. I don't get it. I just don't get it. Some bands you just don't get, and I don't get
No,
it.
absolutely, absolutely.
I have to be honest. I just don't get it.
Yeah.
It's like Bruce Springsteen. I don't like Bruce Springsteen, you know.
Understood.
I like his 70s stuff.
I like Born to Run okay though, because Thunder Road, we're on a tangent, I think is absolutely brilliant.
So what's your number 4 there, Steve?
My number 4 is the first album, The Call, released in 1982, produced by Hugh Padgham. I think that it was to me, it was a great introduction. As I stated at the beginning of this this show before it started falling apart. I think that album is fantastic, fully formed, and I think they just got better from there. But it has a lot of favorites, like, especially, there's a heart here. To me, I don't think these things sound dated like you guys do. Or like Grant was kind of, I think, saying a little bit earlier. I don't think that they sound dated. In fact, even going back and re-listening to it, or re-listening to all these albums, before we were doing this, reminded me just how much I truly love this band. And I knew that before, but touching each album and listening to it, and I couldn't decide on, it's very difficult to put these in some kind of order. But yeah, number 4 is the self-titled album.
Excellent. All right. BM Bolt.
Okay. My number 4, I'm going to go with 1983's Modern Romans. This was like my introduction to them. At least the first thing I think I remember ever hearing might have been on TV.
Mhm.
When the walls came down. But then I think I kind of lost track with them again until Reconciled probably came out.
Mhm.
But yeah, the walls came down. This phenomenal track. I love that little arpeggio they play there. Da 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 da. The rest of the album is pretty consistent for me. I mean, Walls Came Down, I think is the best track on here. You might all disagree with me, but for the most part, I thought everything else on here was strong. Nothing that really jumped out at me, though. I thought that Destination was kind of an interesting instrumental. It reminded me a little bit of Pump It Up by Elvis Costello. I don't know if you hear that or not, but and the title track I thought was pretty good. It's kind of a fast, twangy sounding song. I liked Violent Times. It's a real slow track, almost like a funeral procession, I thought. I thought it was really good. So, yeah, that's my number 4, Modern Romans.
That's good. All right, ladies and gentlemen, my number 4, I'm going to go with 1984's Seen Beyond Dreams album. I look at this record as not quite as good as what came before. I think that the songwriting on here is very good. I think they got better songwriters. The band always plays well. The keyboard synth sounds on this record don't bother me so much. It's kind of Simple Minds. You could say U2, like Byron mentioned before. I still hear a lot of that early 80s influence, but I think that they are progressing. And there's not, even though I still hear those spoken word vocals, I think the songwriting's better. I don't feel like I'm being as preached to as much as I did on the previous records. We're talking earlier records, like our first couple. But yeah, I really don't have a problem with this record at all. So far, as far as I'm concerned, we're getting better. We're getting into the really good stuff. And, like Byron said, that's his number 8. We all hear this stuff differently. And when I usually have a ranking where Steve's ranking's totally different, mine's totally different, Byron's is totally different, that always indicates to me that maybe this really is a great band because we all hear it differently. So maybe I need to give the Call yet another look again and reevaluate, because maybe there is something here, like Steve says. So,
some of us hear this band correctly, while you guys don't. So, my number 3
All right, go ahead. Number 3.
is
I'm ready.
Reconciled.
Hmm.
And initially, this ended up being my number 4 when I went into this. Just because this pretty much stayed exactly how it is, except for this and the self-titled album. Because when I went back and listened to this again, I realized there's enough of the early sound, like especially like side 2 of the album, sounds closer to the first couple albums for this, and there's a lot of great songs on it. Speaking of Peter Gabriel, he sings backing vocals on Everywhere I Go. Then there's the song I Still Believe, which is probably their most well-known song. It's been covered several times, including Russ Taff, who turned it into a big Christian rock hit. And this, I think, is a wonderful album. I think it's a little cleaner, a little more concise than the previous 3 albums. I think they distilled all the ideas into a more commercial sounding album. So that's my number 3.
All right, cool. Thank you. All right, Byron, you're up.
All right, my number 3, I'm going to go with Let the Day Begin.
Okay.
This was probably their most successful album as far as sales go, and as far as airplay too. Everybody knows Let the Day Begin, big hit.
That's great.
You Run got a lot of airplay where I was at. I'm sure you guys probably heard that on the radio too. Let's see. I thought the first half of the album was stronger than the second half, but whatever. I find that with a lot of their albums. I like there seemed to be a little bit better on the first side, but whatever. Surrender was another good track. Jealousy was really good. To me, that's one of those slow emotional tracks of his. That's the strength, I think, of this band, is when he gets real emotional with his vocals. Closer was another good one. So that's going to be my number 3. Let the Day Begin.
Excellent. All right, cool. All right, my number 3, I'm going to go with Modern Romans. This has the hits, The Walls Came Down. Phenomenal. This got a lot of airplay back in the day. Alternative pop radio would always still play this later on. Even though this is 83, you would hear this in the 90s and the 2000s. This is where I think they really shine. It's very powerful. When I listen to this record, that is the obvious single, though there's some other good songs on here. Final track, All About You. You were mentioning the emotions coming from this band. That's great. The one thing I do want to mention about The Walls Came Down is that Show Me Another. This is one of those great 1980s anthems. This is an anthem. I mean, the hooks, the fill, everything's great. And I mean, he's still talking through it, but for some reason, I'm buying it. Now, these gentlemen think it's feeling, but I don't know. He's talking. Turn a Blind Eye. I hear that. That's a kind of an U2 influence track. This record to me has better songwriting, catchier hooks, and I'm all about catchy hooks. If you have a catchy hook, I'm checked out. The other thing I like about this is that this album still sounds very new wave. First album, very new wave, but this still has a tinge of it. I'm in. I like that. For instance, Time of Your Life. Holy crap. What a great track. Very new wave. You got that nice twangy telly guitar sound on it. I might even like that better than The Walls Came Down. Reminds me of something else, and I've been trying to pick my brain. I thought it's kind of like Wall of Voodoo, but is it really? I think it's something else. You guys might know something more that it would relate to, but I think Time of Your Life is phenomenal. This record, all in all, I like it. It's the happy medium for me. So there you go.
My number 2.
Number 2.
Seen Beyond Dreams. This is an album that I felt was, again, we're going to get for that emotion. They had that first rush of success. Greg Freeman had left the band, and Michael Bean moved over to bass from guitar. Then they brought in Jim Goodwin, who had played with Sparks. during their 80s period, their hit period with, Angst in My Pants and Sparks in Outer Space stuff. And he added that synth, that keyboard element, and I felt the songs, although not as direct as the songs on Modern Romans, I felt that they had more depth to them. They were less.
I agree.
They were less. What's the word I'm thinking? They were less instantaneously catchy, and the more you listen to them, the more you were sort of drawn into it. A lot of great layers to the album, and that's why it's my number 2.
It's good. Excellent. All right, Byron.
All right. So my number 2, I'm going to go with Reconciled. I feel like this. I didn't like the albums before this as much. You can see that based on my rankings. I felt like this is the album where it really started to come together. The songs were very strong, I thought, on here. I mean, Everywhere I Go is a classic. So is I Still Believe. I really liked The Morning. I thought Oklahoma was pretty good too. Tore the Old Place Down. This is, I think, one of their best albums. Too.
I think the critics
can't go wrong with that
too.
album.
It's a critic's favorite. This record.
It was close to being my number 1. I mean, it was real close.
All right, well, that's my number 2 as well. I think pretty darn good, great record. Everywhere I Go has backup vocals from Jim Kerr and Peter Gabriel. I think that this was, and of course, we all know this was their breakout album, and for good reason. I think that the songwriting's even better. One of the tracks, I Still Believe, I listened to that, and I swear to God, that's the intro from Kool and the Gang, Get Down on It. I could be wrong, but it sure says like Kool and the Gang. And then the synths come in, and that totally derails the whole track. But it's got full tilt 80s production. But for me, there's something about it. I don't think this record's aged as well, but I think that the songwriting and the playing on here and just the overall vocal delivery on here suits me better. So yeah, I can take that it's much more 80s here, but I think the vocals are better. I don't know. The only kind of song that I kind of was bored with, Byron mentioned Oklahoma. It's kind of like it kind of reminds me of Elvis. I was kind of a bit bored with that, but I think Sanctuary is the best track on the record. It kind of sounds like The Cure, and Michael Bean's actually singing on this. It's really a breath of fresh air. It's kind of like The Cure and the first Berlin album. If you molded those together, you kind of, sprinkle a little bit of surf on top of it. That's what I think. That's my number 2.
Well, before I say my number 1, which is everyone knows what my number 1 is because it's the only one. It's the only one that I haven't talked about. That's the album Modern Romans, which I still think is incredible. I remember the first time I heard it, I bought it at, again, it was in the LP bins up at Renee's All Ears on Melrose Avenue. Pull it out, I go, oh my God, the new Call album. This is even before Walls Came Down started getting airplay, because I was already a fan with the first album. So I took it home and it blew my mind, still blows my mind. And what blows my mind is the first 3 albums are still not available on CD. So The Call, Modern Romance, See Beyond Dreams, but you can get The Walls Came Down, a compilation, and this contains tracks from all 3 of those albums. And it is absolutely stellar. And also there is same exact cover. There's Collected, and this contains 3 CDs. It's basically sort of the best of all the albums, all the Call albums, plus it's got some like rare mixes, live tracks, stuff like that. So great collection, but still I really want those first 3 albums on CD. There is also a Best of the Call that has a couple non-album tracks that you can't get anywhere else. But Modern Romans, I think, is just an amazingly exciting album. And still, when I hear it today, it takes me right back to 1983. It's wonderful. Walls Came Down and, Turn a Blind Eye. And it's just incredible. So that is my number 1 favorite Album by The
Excellent.
Call.
All right, Byron, number one.
All right, there's only one left for me as well. So it's funny that my number one, Grant, I think you picked it as 5, and Steve picked it as 8.
Well, I
I'm
guess it
going.
just proves how great these guys are.
I'm
We all
going.
Yeah.
I'm going with Into the Woods.
okay.
My favorite. I mean, like I said, 1 and 2 were real close. Uh, I feel like the second side of this album was a little stronger than on Reconciled, and that's what hurt. I thought Reconciled, as far as I am concerned. My favorite song by The Call is "I Don't Wanna."
It's a great song.
Nobody's mentioned that tonight. That is my favorite song. That is an incredible song. The emotion and the buildup in that track just it's like a gut punch or something. And uh, the song's about dealing with pain, loss, and anguish, and how he doesn't really want to talk about it, but he's singing a song about it. Of course.
Yeah.
It's just an incredible song. That's probably why this is number one in my opinion. This album. The next song, "In the River," I think is a real strong track as well. It kind of reminds me a little bit of John the Revelator. I don't know if you guys have ever heard that song.
No.
It's kind of a bluesy, gospely song. It's been covered by different bands. Could Have Been Me. I really always like that. Day or Night. Memory. It's another slow emotional ballad. That's one of their strengths. Expecting. I thought that was another emotion-filled song. And then Walk Walk is kind of a rockabilly track. I really dig that. So, like I said, I thought that the second half of this album was real strong. I think it's what pushed it over the edge for me. So,
Right.
yeah, Into the Woods, my number one.
Excellent. All right, cool. Well, my number one, after going through this catalog, I'm going to go with Let the Day Begin, 1989. The reason I picked this as my number one is for one reason. Let the Day Begin could be their best anthem. This is an anthem as well.
It is.
It's infectious. There's excellent songwriting. It seems to me when I listen to this record that when they got signed to Geffen, it just seemed to invigorate the band. And a lot of times that happens when these bands, but I think it's a fine effort. I dig the vocals are on here. I don't have any problem with. Run to You, I think's got a great melody, great vocals, great hooks. The thing I like about this record is it has a lot of hooks. It has a lot there that keeps my attention. So these other gentlemen might have ranked it lower, but like I said, we all hear it differently. And
3, so I had it pretty high. Yeah, so my 3.
well, yeah, 3.
But again,
favorable.
I love all these albums, so it's hard to rank them. So even though it's not my number 5 today, a week from now it could be my number 3.
So I kind of was hard on it, but then there's some records here I like. I mean, my top 3 I'm good with.
Yeah.
I don't have much more to add than hopefully we've turned you on to something. I hope we haven't deterred anybody, or I hope I haven't deterred anybody.
If they just paid attention to this little square right here, then they're hooked.
Just listen to Schnee.
I'm going to tell you, I think it comes down to what type of music do you like?
It does.
Because my one was Steve's 8, and I think vice versa. And it's probably because we have totally different genres that we're into. That's really the thing. Because the End of the Woods, I thought was more of a bluesier,
and it's
album.
And
it's I'm also more into that.
What are we looking for when we listen to music?
I like dark music as well. That's like you said, that's a dark album.
Right. I mean, I'm looking for something that makes me feel passionate, something I can connect with, whether it's something lyrical or a melody or whatever. And some people who are musicians, they listen to albums differently. I'm not a musician. Some people who are pretentious critics, they're going to listen to a music or an album differently. I look for something that makes me feel good that I can turn around and tell people about.
Yeah,
I like music that kind of makes me sad.
I don't like to be sad.
Who's it? Louis Nasser says, "Happy music makes me angry, and angry music makes me happy." Something to that effect.
I'm good, but I gotta have hooks.
Yeah.
And I don't like talk vocals so much, and I don't like gang vocals. And that's just the way it is. And I just think for me, the Let the Day Begin, for me, is my favorite.
Yeah. It's a great song
It's a great,
and a
and
great
it's
album.
well, I
And,
mean, album. It's got
yeah.
it checks all my boxes.
Hmm.
We all hear it differently. So
Yeah.
yeah, I mean, yeah, I'm happy with that. I think I'm happy with that ranking. Could
I'm
change
happy with mine.
because now when I listen to it, I look at my notes because I go up to number 6. My number 6, I put The Call from 1982 as my number 6. And then I look at everything on it in my notes. I put very 80s sound. It sounds like early San Francisco band Translator, Cars, Tic Tac guitars, combo between Translator and the Cars. And I'm going, well, shouldn't this be higher? Because it's
Right.
got all this stuff I like. But then Michael Bean's vocals kind of deter it for me. Even though the
Mhm.
band sounds great, we've got, I guess maybe it's
The
the,
vocals are the strength to me on these albums.
and
Mhm.
see, that's not the strength for me.
Yeah, it's just different
It's the
tastes.
band playing and the hooks.
And all
And
those bands you mentioned, I'm not familiar with any of them. Translator and all that.
well,
Oh yeah, I
that
know
was
all that stuff. I
funny.
love that stuff.
Yeah, it's
I
just
love
different.
Translator. That's
Yeah.
another band I'd love to look at because I think their catalog is phenomenal.
Let's
And
do it.
okay, and that's one of those records you could buy back in the day in the cheapy bins, and no one bought them. And that's how I discovered them. Spending a buck. Wow, that's a good album. Like the first album. What a cool cover. Bought it, went home and played it. I went, crap. Brilliant stuff. Brilliant.
I would definitely put The Call in the same category as Translator. Hard to pinpoint the exact influences, but you can pull little bits and pieces of the 60s and this band and garage rock and all that kind of stuff and create something new, exciting. When I used to live in Sacramento, there was a antique store, and I just couldn't afford it, but they had a flyer for The Call from 1982 when they were playing like local clubs up there or whatever. And they were selling for like $50. It's like I just couldn't afford it. But to me, that's a piece of history because The Call is just one of those bands,
Mm-hmm. But I always mention I try to come up with other bands that maybe someone may be
Mhm.
familiar with.
Mhm.
I don't, when I really do listen to them, they really do have an individual sound.
Mhm.
I mean, I can pick certain elements out,
Yeah.
but they really are quite unique for this time, I would have to say.
Yeah. But it's good.
There's a lot of U2 in there, and I think that's just coincidence. Because think about it, they were both out there. They're both contemporaries. They were both out there at the same time. And I think that's just
Yeah. If you're going to mention U2, it's the early U2, not the
correct.
Achtung Baby crap.
Not Octoon. Oh, I like Octoon Baby though.
Oh, figures.
Well, we did a U2 show, and I was really surprised how good that record was.
I would my U2 show would only go up to Unforgettable Fire, and I stopped there. But that's
Yeah.
me. That's me.
Mm. Well, see, ladies and gentlemen, there you go. Well, there's some really great U2 albums in that later catalog that I had never paid attention to until we did that show. And I was really surprised how good they were.
There's some bad albums. At least one.
Well, yeah, but we're not gonna, yeah. Pop Mart. Some people like Pop Mart on that show, but they rank low for me. So basically, my opinion is that there's a lot of The Call here. There's a lot here for everybody. We all look at it differently. So because the ranking was all over the place, leads me to believe that maybe I need to take another listen and reevaluate. And hopefully everyone watching this show can give us some input on The Call, or hopefully we can turn you on to the band so you want to reach out and check out that catalog. But please leave a like, please leave a thumbs up, please leave a comment, ring that bell, buy some merch, buy yourself a damn shirt, buy yourself a damn hat. Based on that, let's wrap this dog up. I want to thank Stephen Schnee and BM Bolt tonight. before we wrap this up, Schnee, do you want to talk about some of the things you have coming up?
Yes. I don't know when you're going to post this, but probably.
ASAP.
Okay. Well, you got to edit it. But Schnee TV. I started a new thing, which is all indie music videos. Each episode's about an hour long. I'm probably going to cut it down to a half hour when I lose the excitement of it, but it airs every Friday. I premiere it every Friday so we can all watch it live together. It's all modern indie music artists. I go straight to the artists, straight to the labels, request the music. Grant has helped me introduce a couple artists in the first 2 episodes, and he's going to be doing it in the future. I'll just make sure that I don't get the call. And
Well,
and then
I don't think the call would make the cut.
yeah, I know. Well, no, they would make the cut if they had a, but yeah, they're not indie. But it's just a really fun time to introduce yourself to new music. And that's it.
Cool. And then you also have the Ski Lodge Tuesday nights.
Yeah, Ski Lodge Tuesday nights where I play 60s and 70s or 60s and early 70s sunshine pop, easy listening, pop vocal, and got a lot of people who show up every week. And it's just a great, easy, relaxing time. Escape the troubles of the universe and just hang out there for a little while. Thank you for letting me promote that.
Of course. Thanks for coming on the show. Byron, is there anything that I should mention?
We got Zappa next week, I think.
Next week, Zappa, go ahead.
The word of the day.
Be covered. Plug that for us.
We're doing Apostrophe. What's the date on that?
I'm looking it up.
The 18th. July.
Yes. 7 p.m.
Yeah.
7 p.m. We'll probably do that live. But yeah, we're going to look at Apostrophe. So if you want to join us for that, please do join us. Leave a comment. Based on that, what's really coming up here in the warehouse? I don't know. This problem. But like I said, please do all the things I just said. Check out Steve Schnee's channel. You'll see Byron. You'll see both of these guys up here again. So, all right, everybody, have a good weekend if I don't see you. And keep it real and keep it clean.